Baby.
We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause we been.
Y'all better get comfortable with saying black.
We in here, yeah, we in here.
Black versus the Board of Education.
'Cause we can't get rid of us now. We in here, yeah, we in here, 'cause we can't get rid of us now. And you know that we don't ever go, 'cause we been here.
That's why we are indeed a whole mood.
That's it.
Welcome to another Monday of Black versus the Board of Education. My name is Miss Laureen, and I welcome you into this space. And as usual, we a little late. I mean, but it's okay. All of us are accounted for.
Yeah.
But we're a little tardy for the party. Melissa is not out today because she has something important to do. But and Mr. Chastain, he's missing in action, but we won't hold that against him. We are pivoting from our scheduled topic. I know we were supposed to be talking about testing and all that good stuff, but we like to do what we do, and that's change on a dime. So today we're talking about willful defiance, and we're talking about who gets pushed out, who gets labeled, and we're calling out one of the most dangerous misunderstood labels in our education system. Let's be clear: the label has never been just about behavior. It's about power, control, and what schools decide is worth understanding and who they decide to remove. Mm-hmm. California supposedly banned willful defiance suspensions for younger students, yet somehow Black students are still being labeled, disciplined, and pushed out at disproportionate rates. Mm-hmm. Still, Elk Grove #1 in the state for disproportionate discipline of Black children, but we'll keep it going. So what changed? And more importantly, what didn't? Today, we are joined by Dr. Mark Warren, author and researcher digging deep into the origins and evolution of willful defiance, and advocate Letha. Mm-hmm. And she's going to tell us about her because I heard that we do similar work. Mm-hmm. And you're not here in California, right? You're based where?
The South, Raleigh, North Carolina.
In the South at Raleigh, North Carolina, you're going to have to get on that microphone so the people can hear you. I can hear you just fine. Because this conversation isn't theoretical. It's about what happens when a child says no, because some of y'all adults don't know how to keep your hands to yourself like the tickle monster from last week. It's about, and the system that decides no is a problem instead of a signal. Mm-hmm. So I didn't fully introduce you because I'm gonna leave that to you to do. So we're gonna go around. I'm gonna start with my castmates, and you guys are gonna give a brief introduction, and we'll turn it over to our guests, and we'll get the conversation started. So let's start with Miss Coco. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, girl. Hey, y'all know Denisha Coco Blossom. I'm here, the associate director says, just a Project Queen building and sharing my voice and my thoughts.
Awesome.
Word. And I'm Patrice Hill, known to the young people as Mama P, director of SAYS, but most importantly, an educator and someone who cares deeply about Black children.
Ooh. Hey, Mr.
Hey, how y'all doing? Mr. Fox, mentor, advocate, coordinator for Black Youth Leadership Project, and outreach coordinator for Time Done.
Fantastic. And let's start with ladies first.
I like that. Hey, y'all. I am Letha Muhammad. First and foremost, I'm a Black mama of Black children who have matriculated now through public schools in the South, in Raleigh, North Carolina, to be exact. And I'm a grandma of a 4-year-old who will soon be entering public schools for the first time. And then I also have the pleasure and honor of co-founding and co-leading Education Justice Alliance, which is a community-based nonprofit that is intentional with building power across race and class, with working class Black and Latina families, parents, guardians, young people from middle to high school. Our work is rooted in dismantling the school to prison pipeline and school to deportation pipeline, and making sure our babies stop being criminalized in public schools across North Carolina. That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that you say that, I remember I was at a conference, NBCDI, National Black Development Child Institute. Girl, I done went all the way around. But anyway, whatever it is, Black National Child Development Institute. And they were talking about the problem in North Carolina, right? And so I'm just wondering, has it gotten any better?
Well, not according to data that was just released 2 weeks ago, we actually are in Wake County, which is the largest school district in North Carolina. And the story is always the same, right? That there is a reduction in suspensions and
Elk Grove knows that
expulsion.
well.
But what
Mhm.
happens is when you drill down to the racial demographics, that number does not change for Black students. And oftentimes the number rises. And coupled with the release of that report, there was an additional report around restraints and seclusion
Oh,
use in our district. And unfortunately, Black children led in terms of who was restrained and secluded in the district. So no, it's still a problem, a deep problem in North Carolina.
my. And sitting next to you, this gentleman that I had the pleasure of meeting in 2018, they reminded me. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Warren. I'm a professor of public policy at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. And I've been studying and working with community organizing groups, parent and youth organizing groups around the country, including Letha, Patrice, and Coco for a very long time, 30 years now, actually. And I've been focused on how young people and parents and communities organize for racial equity, educational justice, community liberation. And my most recent book was called Willful Defiance. It was on not just the school to prison pipeline, but the movement that is trying to fight it and work to dismantle it.
So let's start there, because there seems to be a generic definition that folks seem to ascribe to the term willful defiance. So for folks who believe that anytime a child has an adverse response to an adult telling them something, can you define what willful defiance is for the audience?
Well, sure.
And I know
there-
it's a broad topic, but your best to frame it.
I think that states have a lot of different terms to refer to it. In California, it is called willful defiance. And it basically, it says that willful defiance is an infraction, and in some cases actually against the law, for a student to willfully or to defy the instructions of an educator in a school setting. And that is a very broad and loose and subjective definition. So if a 6-year-old boy is jumping around in his seat and the teacher tells him to sit down and be quiet and he doesn't, well, that could be construed as willful defiance. And it's a suspendable offense. And there are others, like not taking your hat off. If a teacher tells you to take your hat off, well, that could be construed as willful defiance. So it's a very subjective term that is really subject to racial bias. And so that is one of the reasons, not the only reason, but it's part of the reason that, as we know, Black students will be more, 3 times more likely to be suspended than white students. Black girls actually 6 times more likely to be suspended than than white girls. And in some states, it's actually against the law. So you may know of the case of Nia Kenny, who was assaulted by a school resource officer.
Dragged out the desk, right?
Yeah, dragged off of her. She would not turn in.
Her
she was
phone,
told to turn in her phone. She said she didn't have a phone, and so the teacher said, "Well, I've had enough of that." And he called in the SRO, and the SRO said, "Turn in your phone." She said, "Well, I don't have one on me." And he said, "I've had enough of you," and unfortunately grabbed her and dragged her across the floor. And it was filmed by a classmate, another Black girl. But they were charged with the criminal violation.
The girls
were charged with the criminal violation of willful defiance. So it's very serious.
Wait, willful defiance is wait. I just caught that. So you must have said that before you went into the story. So you're saying that now kids can be charged for willfully defiant
in some states.
Good
In some states it's actually against the law. In other states it's a suspendable offense. And there has been there was a lot of community and youth and parent organizing to try to change some of those policies. And as was mentioned in California, there has been some change.
There's some. I think they go. They don't suspend K through 8 anymore here in California.
Yeah, and so that was something. But of course, the larger proportion of suspensions are in secondary school. Later.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
In any case, We also don't know what happens to students who aren't officially suspended. Are they kicked out of the
Right.
classroom? Are they actually in the classroom learning, or are they, under the books? And we have lots of cases where parents are called and said, "Come pick up your son."
Yep.
We're not suspending him, but you have to come and pick him up and take him out of school. So
Mhm.
they're not in the numbers.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah.
So who benefits from keeping that label alive? I'm gonna go Coco.
The system benefits, the schools benefits. You mean that for keeping willful defiance alive? Yeah, the schools, the families don't, the students don't. Only the schools are benefiting from that. The teachers.
Yeah.
Can I add?
Yes, ma'am.
And they're benefiting because to be able to lean into this and remove students that require you to actually do more, right, than the status quo. I think one of the challenges I always see with our public education system, it's set up in a way that if you don't fit within a particular box, right, then you're expendable. And willful defiance as a rule or a thing that we follow in schools for discipline then allows us to push people out of the school house, right? And back out into their communities, and oftentimes to the school to prison or school to deportation pipeline.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and there's some people who would listen to you talk or listen, for instance, Black parents have been coming and saying the same thing over and over and over again. And then there's a certain demographic of folks who believe that Black children are just more defiant in general. So how do we paint that in a way that folks can understand that this is a bigger problem than what the child is doing? This is an adult thing that is happening. Coco, Patrice.
Mark, Dr. Warren said earlier that willful defiance is subjective.
Absolutely.
And it's up for interpretation. Right?
Every law is.
Right. And so we know that if there is a racial bias in an educator or a teacher, they're going to lean more towards over disciplining Black children. Right. So because it's subjective, it's up for so much interpretation.
Right.
And I know it, and we know that students learn differently. We know that, little Johnny can't sit in a seat for 8 hours without feeling like constricted or confined. Right. And so something as simple as, stop moving in your chair could be up for interpretation of being willfully defiant. Whereas Johnny just needs to go outside and play or needs a break.
Right. And so as we're talking about this, it seems like there's different policy reforms that are being put forth, right? Some of these things seem to be common sense, but they're not so common. And so people then think of laws to have people to try to curb their behavior. So you're saying little Johnny may need to go outside and play. Folks are removing recesses with kids who need to go outside and play. And so, Mr. Fox, you can talk about kind of what you've seen on the school campuses when you were there with the boys that they were having an issue with Black boys on campus. So we sent three of our mentors onto campus to try to see if they can help them. So can you talk about that? What you were seeing with the boys and what you thought they needed instead of the punitive actions that they were receiving?
What I seen was, excuse me, basically what we talking about right here, willful defiance amongst my boys. It looks like a red light. When you run a red light, if I run a red light right now, at 43 years old, I'm willfully defiant when I run that red light. But my boys, willfully defiant means that somebody has to understand the ripple effect of what they're actually doing. It means I have to understand what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I know it's purposely irritating you. It's geared toward I'm willfully doing this. So my boys, like you said, himself doesn't understand. He ate chocolate chip cookies for breakfast this morning. My other kid don't understand why his mom brought him late for school and he missed breakfast this morning. My other kid don't understand why he can't be in the same class with his brother. And the other kid just want to know what's going on. You didn't tell me nothing. You didn't give me no paper. You didn't give me nothing. I came in here. You didn't say nothing to me. What are you talking about?
Right.
And now all this is coming down and the teacher has 40, 38 people in there, whatever you may be. They didn't have the time or the patience to have. To me, what I saw, they didn't have the time or the patience to talk to the little Black boys, nor did they have the time or the patience to talk to other ethnic boys there ever. Meaning there was Arabian boys there, there was Hispanic boys there, and all these kids that would come, and all they wanted was a high five. Give me a high five, sit them down and explain, hey, you know why you got to be in class? Why? Everybody else in class already. Yeah, Mr. Fox, but I didn't have an apple yet. Oh, they skipped you. Let me get you an apple. Okay, I'll go back to class. rather
Yeah.
than suspend them. Sometimes, like you said, half the kids that they were sending to me, they had IEPs and 504s. There was already a detailed out plan about how to deal with this actual child. And I have to say that the only persons in some situations that be willfully defiant be the adult, be willfully not being patient,
Yeah.
willfully
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
being up in their paper
Yeah.
leadership,
Yeah.
or willfully saying it's your fault. Even though I'm irritated, it's your fault. Instead of taking a step back and saying, hey, excuse me, I don't have a cup, but I can go next door and get it.
Yeah.
I don't have it right now. If you can wait a minute, sometimes you have to admit you're wrong. Sometimes you have to admit, hey, I approached you a little bit wrong. I'm sorry, I squeezed you a little bit too tight. That takes the adult. The child don't know the ripple effect of it, especially when you're talking about younger and younger and younger. And we're also educating kids these days on campuses about stuff morally that they haven't learned within their homes. So they're here in class, and I want to sit and I want to be still, like you said. I want to pay attention to the thing, but ain't nobody even actually told me why I shouldn't be running my mouth in class anyway. And my teacher, my mom, done already said, I don't like your teacher, which means I don't have to actually listen to this teacher because that's how I communicate it by. So now the kid has to actually be told the difference between your mama not liking the teacher and you not liking him. It ain't, there's a big difference, kiddo. You still have to come to class. Why do you think your mom actually dropped you off here? The mom just dropped him off and said, I don't care nothing about you doing. I don't want to hear that. Call my phone again today. That's all I know. That's it.
And I like how you said, how you put it, Fox. You said, when I run a red light, I willfully defy. You said that, right? But how can you willfully defy for just being you? Like, your little black boys is just being them. You have created a law against me to just be me. And I'm willfully defying. I like the way you put that. They're not willfully defying. They're just being them, right? They're just little black boys running around. I might be hyper. I might need recess or whatever. But now you done put a law against me to say I'm willfully defying because I didn't listen quick enough or I didn't turn around quick enough. I didn't willfully defy. Willfully defying, how you put it, is when I
have to understand.
Yeah, when I have to do something, I know I'm doing it. But now you didn't create. I think about the young black women who may just be a little bit more developed.
Yeah.
And now I'm in trouble because my shirt's a little bit tighter or whatever. But now you don't put a law against my body. You know what I'm saying? I didn't willfully defy. I can't help the way, I'm developed, or I can't help the way my mother didn't buy new, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I like the way you put that. Like, you really broke that down.
And the law is up for too much interpretation.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Warren said, it's subjective. So it could be not taking off your hat. It could be not sitting still in your chair.
It could be rolling your eyes, which we tend to do when you getting on our nerves.
And not taking off your hat for a black man that's a cultural thing, right? Having on our hats, things like that. So now you making me take that off. So
actually be something a part of their little wardrobe, right? But one thing I noticed for girls, this is what I noticed when I asked them why they didn't want to take that. I pull them to the side because they don't talk to them in front of people. Put them to the side. They be embarrassed. They really be.
Yeah.
When
just like you would be embarrassed if you
out,
adult.
They'd be like, hey,
somebody
Fox, well,
reprimand you.
Mr. Fox, they just start wearing gel in their hair. Didn't nobody teach them how to wash it out. So now it's flaky. Or they bangs ain't sitting right. All they trying to do is just cover. I'm actually in class. My stuff messed up. I'm in class though.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. And they like, Fox, I'll do my work. I just want to wear my hat. They culturally, somebody didn't told them their hair this long, and I'm not trying to be funny.
Yeah.
They this long. Somebody told them if they put this gel in it or wrap it.
Right.
Some of them, they didn't got their hair snatched out. Some just ain't combing it. Some their mama ain't did it. However it may be, I wear my bald cap because I'm bald. And when your hair start growing, you see a shadow around the thing. I'll be like, let me wear this hat on when I ain't shaved. You know what I mean? But where are the adults with the patience when dealing with kids
and understanding that they're children?
Understanding when they children, when you putting these policies together and these laws together, and they for kids. For me, when I look at willful defiance, I look at policies that work and people that don't. I'm looking at why you just can't follow what it say right here. Just read the first line.
Go ahead, jump in.
And the irony of this discussion is that we're talking about this happening in places of quote unquote learning, right? That inquiry, where we want young people to be critical thinkers.
Yeah.
But then the adults in the building oftentimes don't model that.
Right.
And we also have to talk about the disparity, right? And so to your point earlier, Patrice, it's open to interpretation, and too often the interpretation is tainted by people's racial disgust of Black children. Like let's name that is a real thing.
Yeah.
So we have ideas. Some of us in these buildings have ideas about who Black people are, who Black children are. That doesn't allow for grace.
Correct.
When they don't show up in the most appropriate ways. And oftentimes the ways they are showing up is actually appropriate behavior for underdeveloped adolescents.
Right.
Right. Right. And where is the grace? That then when you look at the numbers, you asked the question earlier about why Black children are looked a certain way. How do parents combat that? Like in our work, we always pull out the data.
Mhm.
And because the other thing that we have to name about the practice of using this particular law or a policy to suspend children, to expel children out of schools, there's an internal shame factor oftentimes that parents and young people carry around experiencing suspensions, expulsions, referral to law enforcement that puts the blame on them.
Correct.
And we offer up that the blame should be on the ways in which the system is using this tool in a way that targets some students and leaves others out. So looking at the data, seeing the disparity, helping parents understand data, and even young people is part of the work we do at our organization, which is called Education Justice Alliance. I don't think I said it
You
earlier.
did, but you keep saying it.
Okay, I'm gonna keep saying
we
it.
gonna want y'all to look it
EJA,
up.
as we're affectionately known in North Carolina, that there is power in the knowing. It's power in peeling back the layers and helping people understand the data, to look at the policies that currently exist and then think about your own experiences. Was the policy even followed?
Yeah.
Right.
That child had an IEP. Who read it?
Me.
The IEP laid out
Yeah.
exactly what you should do to help this young person if they're having a struggle, and you didn't do it.
Right.
So you're at fault, not the
Right.
child.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's important to understand that even sometimes when you do break out the data, it's those who are producing the data or even the self-reported data, like on the California dashboard, when you call that into question, they act like they don't have no sense. They're like, wait, no, that's not the real numbers. Well, of course it's not the real numbers. It's probably a lot worse than what you self-reported, right? And they're not used to people going in and looking at the data and then coming into the room like full stop. This is where we're going to start. But Dr. Warren, there are a couple of questions that a parent asked in the chat. So let me go ahead and do that. What are folks in support of willful defiance saying to impact, how this is supposed to impact students positively? And number two, how are they presenting this as a positive thing for families and students? The folks on the other side of the willful defiance argument.
Well, I think I don't know that they have a lot to say about why it's positive for the student who is suspended.
Right.
But there is a narrative, and the narrative was, we are removing the bad kids from school so the good kids can learn.
Oh, like lean on me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
that, I would say, has been their main justification. But the problem is when you start removing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kids.
Right.
And, you know, in the state of Texas, for example, 85% of Black students have been suspended at one point in time in their secondary career.
Wow.
If you're a Black boy with disabilities, it's 90%. So it's almost like every single one.
Right.
Well, then how are you removing the bad?
Instead of learning how to deal with them.
Bad, you know, all these kids aren't bad,
Right.
even if there are any at all bad kids or very troubled kids. That's a very, very, very small number, and who also need support rather than removal.
Right.
But, you know, so that has been, I suppose, the justification for it. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, with COVID and the shutting downs of school, you know, a lot of young people came back to school with trauma.
Yeah.
And the response wasn't by the schools, well, we need to support these young people. It's normal that they would be traumatized by these experiences of being out of school and having death in their, or severe illness and death in their families. And instead the response was, well, let's have a return back to harsh discipline.
Yeah.
And
There was no
things like
plan.
that.
No, they didn't come to the table and figure out what kind of impact immediate shutdown on kids would have.
Right.
It hurt grown people.
Yeah.
Right.
I would have
And
to
the
say
parents
though,
of these,
what he said,
Uh-huh.
which the definition of willful defiance.
Yeah.
You said to put the bad seeds away so that the good kids can learn. That policy is the same exact, like word for word. No crap. That's the same policy in prison. They tell us we're putting the bad seeds away in the hole so that you good guys can program. But prisons are constantly on lockdown.
Right.
And then every 3 or 4 or 5 years, they double down and triple down, which creates the shoe term and a bigger hole and a bigger hole. But the guys in the hole come out so messed up. And the guys that are supposed to be programmed, they confuse them so much, and then you put them together, and it's a cesspool of a pot to keep stuff rolling. But it was weird that you said
No,
that was the definition, because that's the same exact definition I
The
heard.
school to
for 20
prison pipeline.
Yeah.
And I
They
think,
tell us that word for word while we in the hole.
Mhm.
Make sure everybody else can program.
you know, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I think, you know, we've been focusing a lot on what happens like right in the classroom and right in the school, which is right. I mean, that is the front line. But when you step back, you have to realize that all of the school to prison pipeline started at the same time as mass incarceration started.
Mhm.
And the whole idea of, you know, zero tolerance, the broader term we often use is zero tolerance school discipline, of which, you know, willful defiance is part of that larger system. But that was the same justification used in communities that turned out to led to millions and millions of people being incarcerated, and the United States having the highest incarceration rates. And the same justifications were across. And so while the parents were being incarcerated, the children were being put on a school to prison pipeline. There's an interconnection.
Wow.
And I don't know if people realize that, you know, 40% of Black children by the age of eighth grade will have had a parent in jail.
Mhm.
40%.
Mhm.
That's almost half.
Yeah.
in
I was
jail.
one of them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I was
right.
one of them.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's very high.
That's
Yeah.
incredibly
Yeah.
high.
And
then
it's
what's
by
the-
design.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's by design, right? So while you're incarcerating the parents, you're setting up the children. And it is really a system of racial control.
Yeah.
And a lot of people talk about it as, you know, with the gains of the civil, you know, we're right now facing a backlash, right? A
Yeah.
racist backlash. Well, the racist backlash to the gains of the civil rights movement turned into mass incarceration, the school to prison pipeline, as schools became desegregated and Black students, and also to some extent, you know, Latinx and Indigenous students too, started entering schools. The way to reestablish racial control after Jim Crow and segregation was the school to prison pipeline.
Hmm.
And so there are larger systems at play, even when we look at how they do play out in the classroom itself.
Right.
And
then
so, go ahead.
I would just add, so that also lends itself to the programming of us, right? So then we begin to believe these narratives about
Correct.
who our children are,
Mhm.
who we are. We are less likely to fight against
That's right.
a policy like willful defiance or short-term suspensions with no appeal processes, which is something we're fighting to establish in North Carolina, because we get conditioned to believe a thing
Right.
about us that isn't real. And so I would encourage the audience, as you're listening to us, if you hear something that's like, oh no, but I know them kids is bad, interrogate who told you
Right.
they were bad. How do we get to determine who's good and bad?
Uh-huh.
And why do we more aptly, and when I say we, I'm talking about Black people,
Uh-huh.
right? We then allow someone else to define for us who we are
Right.
as a people. We have to pull back that narrative. We have to fight to gain control of our own minds and intellects and knowings about who we are as a people in this country.
I mean, and I don't think that a kid is bad. What I think is that a kid has been let down so many times, they found a way to survive in a system that told them they were not worthy. And then a lot of times, especially when we were coming up, do you guys remember the parents always saying, well, you better listen to that teacher. Don't have the teacher call me
Yeah.
because it's going to be a problem, right?
Yeah.
And so we dropped the ball, in a sense. Black parents, we dropped the ball because we then believed other people over what our children were saying was happening to them.
Yeah.
And so now it's kind of like, until I got into advocacy, I didn't realize the damage we were doing until I had to sit in rooms with people who force fed that narrative to children. What I figured out was you cannot have correction without connection, period. Full stop. And if you did something to a kid, they are going to carry that trauma in their body throughout their whole educational career.
Yeah.
So the next teacher that says something to them, they're flashing.
Yeah.
The next person that has a negative thing to say, they're coming unglued, because we haven't dealt with or taught them how to deal with being let down by people who are supposed to protect them, period.
And even the young people who aren't, quote unquote, getting in trouble are seeing with their own eyes the difference that's happening. My son, who's 19, I remember the first conversation he brought this up. He was in third grade We're sitting in the car waiting for school to open. And he said, Ma, you know, I be wondering why come such and such who cuts up never gets in trouble, but my friends do. And they do the same thing. Such and such being a white boy in his class. And I remember leaving the school that day with tears coming out of my eyes that my son in 3rd grade had to recognize and realize
Internalized.
that there was a difference
Absolutely.
that he was seeing his friends receive over his white counterpart in his class. And it wasn't about the behavior.
Right.
It was about the ways in which the adults
Yeah.
chose to zero in on the black boys in the classroom.
Hyper focus.
Yes.
Hyper focus. And then when you're sitting in advocacy meetings, you're like, well, is his behavior any different than his classmates at the same age? And they
Right.
say no. Well, then why am I here?
Right.
Well, why am I here? If you know that it's no difference, what is the issue you have with him?
Racial
And they would say stuff like, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. And I'm like, I have an analogy. If I had a 30-year-old computer, I have one of two things I could do. I can update the hardware or I could get rid of it. What should we do with you? And she got mad. It was just a question.
And I just wanted that.
You know, because we have to self-assess. We're asking kids to self-assess and regulate and correct behaviors that we as adults are steeped in our behaviors are unwilling to do.
Yeah.
And that's why the interpretation matters, right?
Mhm,
If
mhm.
I've not done any work to recalibrate and say, well, maybe what I'm doing is harmful to this baby,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to continue to do what I've always done. And
Right.
because I've never been held accountable and I have a big bad giant union protecting me,
Mhm.
I'm going to continue to do what makes me comfortable,
Right.
even if it detrimentally impacts this young
They're
person.
going to continue to be willfully defiant.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But we're telling the kids to correct the course. Like I just don't understand. It's like, stop it. Yes, sir.
Sometimes some of them teachers, I witness stuff that comes out of people's mouth, and they have like a Jahari's window. They have a blind spot. You don't even know it comes out of them until they upset. And they don't recognize it when it comes out of them, and their friends don't check them when it comes out of their mouth.
Mm-hmm.
If one of my partners came through that door right now, I could tell you right now, based off that's my partner, whether or not he's right for this podcast. And I'm gonna tell him before he comes in here what he can't say out of his mouth, because I know what he's gonna say out of his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, I continue to preach, man, we got to get back to adults checking adults. Adults be knowing that other adults be about that type of behavior, and they let that energy
They
in the
let it
room.
happen.
I knew who you was before I hired you. I know
Yeah.
who your uncle is. They be saying, oh, I know you, girl. I know. Then I know your energy and I know your morals. And they be knowing that this be about it's a strong level of protection of the stuff that comes on. I look at the day and age of era of where people was raised from. So you got all these teachers that are now in the schools. They're young. You got this word, will for defiance. It doesn't go with what science has just taught us. Your brain, your prefrontal cortex in your brain and all that, it continues to develop all the way till you're 25.
Mm-hmm.
But you're hitting somebody with will for defiance at 6. The brain's so soft, it's still shaping. You can still rub a child's head at that age and continue to shape it. But then you look at these teachers who have not, they ain't had heartbreak yet. They ain't lost a bill yet. They ain't had their car yet. They 22, they still going through life themselves. They have no life experience to know how to deal with the fact that I didn't even really know I really didn't like black boys like that. I'm just doing them like I see my father doing. And I'm in here doing this. And my homegirl, she's doing the same thing. There's nobody correcting the adults. And the adults not even understanding they're not wrong or caring of the ripple effect that they care. All they really care about is what happens with my kid. My kid don't go to this school, so I don't care. I often hear, I don't care out of adults' mouths.
It's a shame how we're quick to protect adults than we are our children. You know, you protecting your coworker, you protecting another organization, you protected somebody else before you even protect our children.
Well, they're saying is the harvest is plenty, the workers are few.
Yes.
And there's too many adults who I think are scared to really learn how to combat the system. For whatever reason, I don't know. But I know at school board meetings, I'm more than likely one of the only black people in there. Well, when Fox comes. So
Go ahead, Fox. Fox
but-
got your back.
but it's so weird to me that we can be in such a state in our educational system where we now have 2 school districts striking simultaneously.
Yes.
We have one that's looking at being taken over by the state again because of financial reasons.
Yes.
The district office received pink slips, the whole district.
The whole district office.
You know what I mean? And then we have Elk Grove, who continues to lead at number one in the state for disproportionate discipline of Black children. And we're asking our kids to come into systems, one, that have already shown that they don't care about you. Two, they can't even get their act together.
Right.
There's financial mismanagement all over the place. The same policies are in place. Nothing is getting better. And nobody has the urgency to really do something. So, Dr. Warren, when you're teaching your students in your classes, what is one of the highlighted things that you like to kind of drill down to make sure they understand about the message you're conveying, whether it be aligned with willful defiance or whatever? How do you get them to look at the world in reality and not through rose-colored glasses?
Good
Yeah.
question.
Well, I think that is a couple things. I think that one of the things that I actually do try to emphasize is for students to not just look at other people in their own profession, but to look to understand like the role of parents, the role of young people, the role of communities, and actually creating change.
Right.
Because even on something like the school to prison pipeline, and most of my students at the level of ideology are progressive, right? So they don't want the school to prison pipeline. But it turns out that, the people who really first started criticizing it were not academics. They were not teachers. They were not education policymakers. They were parents and organizations like the Education Justice Alliance, or they were young people in groups like Sacramento Area Youth Speaks that really started speaking up all the way back in the 1990s. And the system first started to be implemented. And I actually went down to Holmes County, Mississippi, in a rural Black Belt area. And that's where I found the first people to organize. They were Black parents organizing to against the school prison pipeline, and also policing. We haven't even really tackled the whole issue of policing yet here in this conversation. It's not just harsh discipline, it's also the presence of police and policing systems in schools. But I think it's also, and we were talking about, I don't really teach pre-service teachers, but I think part of the issue too with the teachers who are coming in, they're young, they tend to be young white women from suburban areas who don't have a cultural background. They don't really understand, but they also think about themselves as the experts, and they don't think about families and communities of being experts. And like, why don't we learn from Black parents or Black communities that have helped raise and sustain young Black children?
Everybody,
despite racism, right?
Yeah.
Like why don't we learn from that? That's not what's taught in our pre-service education. So I think we have to upend that very hierarchical narrative that it's these experts tending to be white experts that are teaching, the people what is really supposed to happen in schools, rather than, kind of flipping that script. So to me, it's important. I try to bring community organizers and parent organizers and young people into my classrooms, let them speak for themselves, and let students realize that, people with a lot of wisdom and knowledge that really can address these fundamental inequities are really in our communities, but they haven't had a voice, or that they're organizing for a voice that they're usually being denied.
That's all I can say about her.
Boy, you said a mouthful.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I don't understand why they continue to bring in the same types of teachers that they do. It seems like, and I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I'm looking at these protests, and I'm looking at all these white women screaming injustice for me in my classroom. But then I look at the discipline numbers and I'm conflicted. I have to be honest with you. I mean, I hear you, lower class sizes, it'll help us teach the kids. Okay, well, when you do that, how are these discipline numbers going to change? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just so conflicted. And then I mean, and I know I'm pivoting to a whole nother topic, but I watched this weekend, you know, because I be on Facebook reading comments, and I watched how they intentionally targeted the black school president of the board in Twin Rivers,
Yeah.
calling her an evil witch,
Christine
talking about
Jefferson.
we're gonna go to her house. And I'm like, all I could think of was the lynch mob, y'all.
Mm.
And I'm like, are we serious? So we're gonna ask for what we want and then threaten to go by people's safe place?
Right.
Like, I'm conflicted. And I'm saying all this because if we're looking at how these policies are being interpreted, we have to look at the people interpreting them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you can say in one breath, I'm striking because of what I need as the adult, and nobody is thinking about these kids
Mhm.
and how this is going to be made up on the back end
Mhm.
and what we're going to require of our kids because of the decisions we made as adults.
Mhm.
I'm just having a really hard time
Mhm.
because I'm looking at the people. These were the same types of people that I saw in the civil rights book yelling at black kids who were trying to integrate
Mhm.
schools.
Mhm.
And so I'm conflicted. And I don't know if I don't care if people don't think I have a right to be conflicted. I'm conflicted.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say that, and I'm going to put it out there because there are 7 people on that school board. Why you go after the black?
One.
Not the
She's
whole
the only
board.
one on the board.
Not the whole board.
And that's the same
Thing you do
way
to our kids.
Thank you. You got me. You see my train of thought. I was traveling.
Same thing you doing to our kids.
Yeah.
I was traveling down that road.
Yeah.
But
Well, I just want to add to that. I don't know that specific case, but you know, we talked about the narrative of bad kids who have to be removed. But I did teach for 10 years at a school of education, and the other deep narrative is the narrative of bad parents.
Mm.
And
Same.
teachers come into the schools thinking not just about bad kids, but bad parents. And these are black parents or Latinx parents or low-income parents. And that narrative, you know, also then, you know, so, well, why are the kids acting up? Well, it's because their parents are bad. And then, you know, that narrative is, and then to try to divide parents against each other.
Yeah.
Was that bad parent and that bad kid and all of that. So I think that is something, and that it comes out of the profound history of, you know, racism and white supremacy in this country in terms of what, unfortunately, these teachers are products of our own public education system, right?
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
they
are the black parents,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Can we
Right.
lean into that for a minute?
Right.
Yeah.
Can we say a word about that? So
Mhm.
we're talking about the trauma that a young person experiences with one teacher that then carries over to the next teacher.
Correct.
Let's think about the trauma that a parent carries from their own educational
Yes.
That's
system
right. That's
in
right.
the public schools.
Yes.
And so no wonder you get parents who are apathetic about coming to the school
Right.
or who come to the school and show they
Behind.
Yep.
right,
And get
right?
slapped with that restraining order.
Mhm.
Because the trauma is real. And
Yeah.
so until we're willing to have conversations that don't point at individual behavior without being able to, you know, come back and make a connection to systemic harms,
Mhm.
then we'll always, right, be
Mhm.
pointing the finger at individuals and not at the system,
Right.
which is what the system wants
to do.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Who wins if it's only about the individual behavior, the
Right.
individual
That's it.
parent?
Yeah.
What changes? Nothing.
Changes.
And then thinking about who keeps coming to schools to be the teachers, we have to then think about what is the pay that is afforded to first year teachers. Who can access that money and still thrive? People who have been set up
Yeah.
generationally to thrive in this
Yeah.
country.
Ooh,
Yeah.
on.
talk to
So-
'em.
No wonder why Black folks and brown folks are not, you know, going into the teaching
Education,
profession.
yeah.
They can't live
Right.
off of
Right.
the rates of pay that they would get as first-time teachers or even seasoned teachers. So we do have to talk about the inequity that is baked into this country, that is rooted in white supremacy and colonization, that has set up a system that some people can thrive in and others can't.
Right.
Hmm.
And just to add, I don't want to make it all about the teachers, but the other thing that basically happens is that the young white teachers, their first job is in urban areas.
Yeah.
They can't get hired right out of school
Right.
to the more affluent suburban districts. They don't have any experience.
Right.
Right.
So the urban schools hire these teachers
Teach for America.
who
Yeah.
last 2 or 3 years. They gain their experience, and then what was always not only, I mean, there are some who are committed who will stay. So I don't want to say everybody, but the majority of them had no intention of ever staying anyway. They want to go back home and
Yeah.
teach in their own suburban school system
Mhm.
where their family and community are. So they're in.
So I'm gonna write these referrals, do what you need me to do, and get out of here
Do
with
my
these
time.
bad kids and bad parents,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. I
and
just
get my loans paid off.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Get my loans.
Get my
I mean,
loans
thank
paid
God
off.
for the public service loan forgiveness. I'm a recipient of that. Shout out.
Me and Coco gotta get on that.
It's not lasting too much longer.
Yeah.
So you better get on it fast.
I be typing every day, like, pay my loans.
A lot of times coming people a lot, just in the way they just treat us, man. If you really don't have no generational love for us, if you haven't seen us within your households, if you haven't seen us at your family dinners, if you haven't been out in restaurants with us, and when I say us, I mean us as a culture. I don't just mean me as Mr. Fox, a black person. I mean, if you ain't really been out with some Hispanics, maybe you don't know that every Hispanic don't eat burritos. If you ain't really been out with black people, maybe you might not know all blacks don't eat chicken and ribs.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe you might find out that my uncle over there sitting in the corner, he's not an old nobody drunk. He's really an old diabetic. He's really a cool person. You know what I mean? And
Or you also find out too, all parents ain't bad. I can
Right.
remember people, when my son did get in trouble, they would be shocked that I was coming and I had some education, I had some knowledge, like, oh, and everything will change. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Versus when they had the narrative, like, oh, he's bad, his mama finna come in here
And cuss us
ignorant and
out.
cuss us out.
Mhm.
You know, and I would see the change, but the narrative was there until I got there and had to change it. You know what I'm
I
saying?
just
So
like that you be having to go there to have to change it, because if you spend time with us like that, or you have some type of empathy for us,
you
you become
would
so
know it.
angry.
But that's
address
a
child and they're
relationship
problem,
though.
I look at a
Building.
child like
Yeah.
yeah, a problem though.
The
Like,
connection.
So when I look
I
at
think Letha talked about that, building that connection.
Can I get your phone? No, Mr. Fox, I ain't trying to give it up. What's going on? Why you trying to give it up? You got a girlfriend or something? You know what I mean? I'm going to go. We're going to have the conversation until I can get the phone. Hey, let's go over here. So, you know, I don't want to disturb the rest of the class. You mind if me and you can go to the, you know, we can continue. It doesn't, I don't understand how adults jump from 0 to 100. It's my phone. I'm going to snatch it. We got to
You'll
wrestle
get
for
it
it.
at the end of the
I put
day.
my hand- If this microphone stop working, I'm going to say, excuse me, Isaiah, it's not I don't need to jump up and get mad. And there's a procedure for things. And it's the same thing for children. When something's wrong with this child, or this child is off track, or they need to be redirected, it's not the adult's time to get mad or the adult's time to get triggered. The child's triggered. They need some help. Whatever they define about, they need help.
It goes back to the racial bias.
Yeah.
There is no grace given for Black children.
Mm.
There it is what's the other sister's name that the he's not a gladiator?
Dr. Fletch.
Yeah.
Dr. Fletch. You know, Black boys are viewed as gladiators, as soldiers.
What is that? Shut up and dribble. Ain't that what she told
like, you know, like there's no grace for that. And so where are we going to find a workforce of teachers that can survive off of first year, third year, fifth year teacher salary, right?
I don't know.
Because
I know
that was
some-
such a great point, Letha. Like I didn't even
Yeah.
think about it like in those terms, right?
Never.
You have to be set up for success in
Yeah.
order to survive off a first year teacher salary. How can we get a teaching workforce unless we're doing a mass exodus out the education system, and I don't see that.
Nope.
Right? How do we get a teaching workforce that is going to have grace and understanding and cultural relevance for Black children? And until we do, we're going to continue to have these subjective laws like willful defiance that are up for interpretation, that are very subjective, and cause, you know, Mr. Fox won't take off his hat. So now Mr. Fox is getting suspended. And even if he's not getting suspended, come pick Fox up. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
But what does that do for Mr. Fox? Okay, if he don't take his hat off, or even if he does take his hat off, He does now. He's not listening because you've embarrassed him in front of the whole
The
class.
whole class.
And his pride is hurt. I've embarrassed him in front of the whole class. I've made him feel small in a space that's supposed to make him feel safe. And not only is he having to leave school, he's losing learning. He might have lost his food for the day.
Or maybe he needs to be assessed. Maybe we need to figure out what support. What supports are available?
Yelling out like that. I'm not here to condone or not hold my kids accountable.
Oh no,
I
we
hold
believe
them
in
accountable to the
accountability.
fullest.
Absolutely.
But I do be realizing a lot of them FUs come from that. It's an emotional response. They're emotionally immature.
Right.
So you take them and you be them. Hey man, go and take that off. And take that out. I'm gonna call the principal up here. Now you done brought all this attention to me.
Negative
I really
attention.
didn't want the attention. I really was. However, I thought about something when you was talking. You said, I forget what you said, but my thought was this. I myself, as a citizen, as a regular human being, I'm unwilling to give the teacher the pay until I see what you can do. That's where I wonder how many parents feel that way, because we keep seeing going, but the apple is so bad, and they're coming and they're saying, I want this and I want this and I want this, and I'm not as educated as everybody else in the room. I say that to say I understand teachers are having problems as well, so I understand both sides of the table. But as a person, as a person who's an advocate for the children, I'm at a point where it's like, I do want to see the teachers get all y'all got. But I need to see y'all wasn't doing this with low pay or any pay yet. I want to see you actually do what you're talking about you're going to do first.
Yeah.
It's fair.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Nobody's seen it for none of these years.
Yeah.
And that's just an opinion, but I do agree teachers are supposed to have it, and that's not the way it's going to go.
Or two.
But I understand the mentalities on the floor be like that.
And I think, like Letha said, we have to look at it like, why do teachers have to go through teacher credential programs and all these different things to be our teachers? People with lived experience, all these different type of things where we can hire teachers different. When you say, what are we going to do? How can we get a better teaching workforce? Yeah. You have parents out there that can be teachers. You have people out there, but we have systems in place that stop you. You got to go through a teaching credential program. That comes with costs. Getting into college, these, all these different things. There's all type of barriers in the way when we're not valuing lived experience. Like you said, you might not have the degrees, you might not, but your lived experience is just as valuable as somebody who went and studied and did those degrees. Like Mark said, he brings people with lived experience in to talk to people that study in these. I'm sorry, y'all, hot flash.
I took a step back.
It's making this is making me. I'm like, wow, nobody getting paid until we get good teachers. Okay? But start to value some of these lived experience and looking at the way that we even recruiting our teachers. Because when I took education classes at UC Davis, it was all type of stuff in a way that made me, if I was in a teacher credential program, say, I don't want to do this. I want to take another major. I don't want to do this, So there's a lot of things in place before we even get to, how we going to get a new teaching workforce.
And you have to pass the teacher credentials, and you have to pass the teacher licensing.
Right.
Which have been demonstrated to be racially discriminatory and equitable. And yet there is actually no evidence. There's not a single research study to show that teachers who can pass a credential, the licensing exams, are better teachers than those who can't.
There's not.
Yet that is the policy in state after state in this country.
Because I could be a great teacher, but what if I have test anxiety?
Right.
Exactly. And even that, you could be a great teacher, but what you got that don't have nothing to do with the fact that my shoes is too small. Do you know how to ask me what's wrong with me? Do your test say that? My shoes too small.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
I can't even cool down.
That's what it is.
So the reality is, right, that there is lack of accountability for the adults. And I'm not just talking about the adults that sit within classrooms or in education spaces. We have to take that trail and take it all the way to the top of who makes decisions in our states around who gets the money, what the pay is when we think about state budgets and the legislature. I think oftentimes these people get a pass. They're sitting in these places making decisions that have direct impact on the experiences that children are having in school. And I think part of what we're talking about requires us, an informed group of people. I believe in building power would parents and young people as a way to make change.
Yeah.
And it's more of us than them. And when
Right.
we begin to understand
That's right.
that we have a right to demand of these systems, this is our system,
Mhm.
public education
Mhm.
that is funded by our tax dollars,
Come on.
right? So we have a right to demand of that system, and for folks who are a part of the system and outside of the system making decisions about what goes into that system, to do right by the children in
Yeah.
that system. And when we all can come together, we can bring parents and have these conversations. This is powerful just right here.
Mhm.
Like, we're having a discussion that's going out to
Yeah.
who knows how many people,
Right,
right? That
right,
could
right.
prick someone's conscience and be like, oh, I could actually, I have a right. I can
Yeah.
say
Yeah, I can
something.
say
I can go ask questions. We've been, again, taught to that we're powerless. And so when you feel powerless, what do?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Silence. Yeah.
Nothing.
Yes, sir.
That's
Stay
right.
silent.
Mm.
Yeah.
Come on, Letha.
You know what I was thinking about? Where are all the black teachers at? No, seriously, because like I'm
mean
looking
just
at
in
all
general
these.
or protesting?
I'm
I was
looking at
just
these
talking about that
protesters.
earlier. Yeah.
I
They're-
haven't
they're-
seen one.
because they're not there.
They're very few and far
Yeah.
between. Or are they protesting? You know?
I don't know.
Yeah, because
I want to
know
talk to them.
in some of the campuses that we are in, and we go to some of these teacher meetings, I be looking like where they at too. Like this school, all the kids in here are black, brown, low income, but all the teachers are
not proportional.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
young.
like, hey,
Yeah.
I was just talking to Mark and Letha about that earlier. I went through all the K through 12 without one black teacher. Like, it is common. You can go through school and not have a black teacher.
Yeah.
Like they're so few and far between. Like
especially here in California. Now, maybe if we go back down south or something,
Mhm.
we may see them, but in California, it's very rare.
And I'm so glad you brought that up because that was one of my questions and I forgot it, but now you just triggered me. Do you find that the policies of the school discipline in the South is more overtly racist or covertly racist? Because I believe California is covert.
I think the South is overtly
See?
racist
Yeah.
because they don't have to be covert.
Yeah.
Right. That's where it all
But-
started at.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the numbers aren't all that different anywhere
If they're
else.
not.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what people need to, sometimes I think it's easy for, some people, particularly white liberals, to say, well, the problem was with the Republicans or the conservatives or the problems down south. But the school to prison pipeline is in place in New York City,
Mm.
It's
Chicago,
popping.
Boston,
United States is
California,
United
States.
all these
Going out
places that are
today.
run by liberal Democrats.
Yeah.
And it's just as deep and pervasive in many in those places as it is in parts of the South. It may present itself more overt or more
Yeah.
covert.
But it's
But
still the
it's-
same problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's what like people tend to think of California as a blue state, and that's here for everybody, a melting pot, and it's just it's covertly racist.
Yes.
In the
Always
way in
have
which
been.
they do their policies and their implementation of the policies that are handed down from the California legislature.
Yes.
Right.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
So
We they prison.
I deal
state.
with a lot of black boys through the BBSM, but I deal with a lot of the BGSN girls. All that. This is hands down across all mothers that I've dealt with. This is why I'm a hugger. When I came home, yes, this is what I've noticed, and this has something to do with this conversation, but I don't know where to take it. But it's something
Okay.
I've noticed, and I'm very aware of it every time. We deal with a lot of the mothers that are hurt, and their children. They come to us and they want advocacy, and within my initial greeting of them, the mother they come, they want help, they're uneducated. I always go to make sure that they know it's cool and it's safe. 60 to 70% of the mothers I've met, even in this one building alone, they flinch, and I notice it right off top. These mothers already be beaten down. I notice exactly what I'm looking at the moment I see it, and I do not say anything. I go in for the hug purposely, and then I begin grabbing ladies' hands and say, hey, do you need water? You need a key? Do you need anything? And I keep talking and talking and talking and talking until I can get them to an office or where I'm at. But my thing is just to give them an over amount of love because of what I just seen. So they come in here already like that. So if they already flinching, what's the chances that I can't just, if I haven't recognized, I can just come in here and say everything's here to be okay. You know what I'm saying? Just go ahead, sign right here. We can get you out. I know you want to be on your way. You're safe here. You're safe here. Just go and sign right here. I have your son in here for the suspension, and we're gonna get him out to school. Go ahead and sign right there. The lady heard that sometimes the parents themselves already scared. That's why we get the phone call later. They don't know what to do in the spot, and they be like, "Hey, I don't know what happened. I sent you to show you the picture today." They be like, "This is what they told me. What do I do?"
Or just don't understand.
They
Right.
don't.
Because I was kind of dealing with that with my father in the medical industry. He really did not comprehend or understand. So I think about the parents. You didn't have me this paper. You didn't have me this IEP. I don't even understand it. I'm coming with my own school traumas. You know what I'm saying? And I'm mad at this kid because he got me up here. You didn't took me from work. You didn't took me from whatever. Yeah. So I understand what you're saying, Fox. And then, not too many of young Black mothers have men that greet them with the gentle of just a hug or, being nice. It's always what you want. Like, okay, he being nice to me, what he want. What I'm saying? Yep. I'm on the defense of what he want. Even when mothers, are putting their kids in sport, coaches is like, oh, you want your kid to play? So a lot of mothers is already like, wait a minute, what he want? He being too nice. You know what I'm saying? So I hear what you're saying.
And then I'm going to add to that. Far too often a woman to be scared like that, and she's in a position to be in front of a man who, I'm looking at you, you're a man, you're in a suit and a tie, and I'm presenting myself as, boy, shouldn't be doing this anyway. Your son is, and she's listening to this man because he's presenting as a man, and you're right, my son shouldn't be doing it. You're a man, you know what a man is, and my son shouldn't be. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And our mother's even more embarrassed, and she doesn't even know this man.
Yeah.
And he's foul. And my boy is saying, I did something, but not like that.
Yeah.
How many times have we went in there and looked at the tape and was like, man, he barely grazed. I mean, not that we gonna hold him accountable.
Yeah.
This is not assault. We're gonna hold him accountable, but come on, principal. He barely grazed across your thing and you was holding him. You know what I mean? You don't have to. It's just a messed up system, man.
It is.
I don't know what the solution is, but I am all for it and I am willing to be behind it.
So check this out, y'all. We have run out of time. So I got 30 seconds. I have 30 seconds for each of you. Your closing thoughts. Coco, I'm gonna start with you.
Just let's keep talking about it. Let's keep coming and bringing these issues to the forefront. And also too, like Letha said, you have power. You have power. So if you got something to say something. If you're that scared, reach out to people like us that can help you navigate these systems.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Keep fighting, keep showing up. These laws are up for interpretation. If you feel like your child has been like wrongfully suspended, wrongfully disciplined, like reach out, use the resources that are in front of you. Black Youth Leadership Project says, like, you can look this stuff up on the internet, like use your rights. Like Letha said, like our tax dollars are paying for these schools. So what a stake are we going to show up in as parents and as organizers to make sure that young people are getting treated fairly in these systems?
Letha.
What they said. I think it's as cliche as it may sound, we are stronger together, right? Yeah. And so when you find your people, build with your people, bring other people along, build with young people, because they're the ones who are actively facing the things that we're talking about. Yeah. And how do we create the space to allow them to build their knowledge and their power together? Mm-hmm. So,
yes,
Dr. Mark.
And I definitely connect with other people because I think people are often too isolated and they're facing it on their own. They think they're facing it on their own, that their child is the only child or they're the only ones, when actually, if you start getting together and talking with other people, you understand that it's happening to this family and that child and another and another and another. And then you start to realize, well, the problem can't be with all these children or with all of these families. The problem's with a system that needs to be, organized against and changed, and to look at those kinds of possibilities.
And Mark, where can parents find your book?
Yes.
Willful Defiance. It is available anywhere you purchase books. So you could get your local bookstore to order it, or you could go onto an online system. It's called the Willful Defiance: The Movement to Dismantle the School to Prison Pipeline.
Boom. And y'all took my thunder, but that's okay. That's okay. And we talked about young people building their power. We are so excited. This Friday and Saturday, we are doing our annual legislative open house for students 8th through 12th grade, where they come to the Capitol and they're basically legislators for a day. So if you have not signed your kid up, do so. Hurry up. Yes. Because we want as many kids as we can in the building, because we think that if we spark that right now, that they'll be able to take that forward. I want to thank you both for joining us today. Of course, my sisters are in the building. We're going to sign out of here, let people get back to their days. But legislative open house this Friday and Saturday. So come through. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you.
That was quick, huh?
It was.
Mhm.
It was good.